You've booked that dream trip to Greece, and I'm going to tell you all the things that you need to know before you get here. Athens is more than the Acropolis. A lot of people I know who come to Greece come and go straight to a Greek island, and I do not blame them in the least. But a lot of those people come to Athens, they stay for one day, they go to the Acropolis, and that's all they see. But there is so much more in this city. There are so many museums to go and visit, and there are lots of little ruins located all around the city. Some of them are more well-known than others, and some are just sitting there, and unless you explore and walk around, you're never going to find them. But it's worth spending a couple of days in Athens, either at the beginning or the end of your trip, just to see all these wonderful ancient sites. The other thing you should know is that Greece is on its own time, much like the Caribbean. It's Greece time. It doesn't mean that people are necessarily chronically late or things don't necessarily run on time, but nothing is rushed here. So at a restaurant, you may ask for your check and 30 minutes will go by before they bring it to you. And it's not that they've forgotten, it's not because they don't care, they just aren't in a rush for you to leave. And that's actually one of the great things about being here is everything is sort of relaxed and laid back. So if you're a person that's going to bother, you should just be aware of it before you get here. One of those things that sometimes might annoy you is that strikes do happen. Sometimes they are ferry strikes, sometimes they are public transportation strikes, and obviously if you're traveling and you're on a schedule, that could affect you. So one is just be aware that it could happen. Usually they're announced in advance, so you can make some changes to your plans. But one of the things I recommend is that you do not book your ferry ticket back to Athens and your plane flight home on the same day. So let's say your flight leaves on Saturday. I would recommend you leave the island on Friday, so that way if there is a ferry strike, you are more likely to be able to A, change your plans and leave either earlier or get some alternative transportation. If you're on an island that has an airport, it's a possibility that you might be able to fly. However, sometimes those book up quickly if a strike is announced. The other thing you should be aware of is that tipping in Greece is more common than in some European countries. It's not a large tipping thing, but a tip is somewhat expected in a sit-down restaurant. Usually you would tip about 10% of the check, so it's not a huge amount, and it's really only for places in which you're served in. Like if you go to a coffee shop and you get a takeaway coffee, or even if you sit down, a tip is not necessarily expected. Obviously, any tip is greatly appreciated. Most Greeks don't make a lot of money, so any extra euros you can afford to throw your way is appreciated. If you're in a larger group and you're not really sure, I've done it a couple of ways. I've had it be where each person leaves 1 or 2 euros a piece, or you take the total and you kind of round up to the next dollar. So let's say your check was 27 euros, you would then leave 30 euros. Whatever you think is fair is probably going to be okay. No one's going to come running after you if you don't leave a tip because it's just not their nature. But just so you know. The other thing about the restaurants that you should know is while you're waiting for that check to come, is they are likely to bring you a complimentary ouzo and or watermelon or some kind of fruit after your meal. This is common especially on the islands where they're used to being super hospitable to tourists. And it is complimentary. You're not going to see it appear on your bill later. Some restaurants will come by and ask you if you want it. They will not be offended if you say no. They might offer you something else. But it's good to know that you can say no, particularly if you don't drink alcohol. If they don't ask and they bring it to you anyway, don't feel obligated to drink it. It's just a thing that they're offering. Obviously, they don't expect you to drink it if you don't drink alcohol. I don't personally like ouzo. Sometimes they'll say, oh, would you like a Rocky? And I'm like, all right, well, I'll take it. I don't drink it usually. Their watermelon is usually excellent, so unless you just hate melon, eat it. It's really good. You have major plans, you're coming to Santorini because it's this beautiful place with these stunning views of this volcanic caldera, and I don't blame you. It's one of the most interesting looking places I've ever seen. However, it's extremely crowded. Everybody comes to Greece to go to Santorini at least once. A lot of those people in recent years have come on cruise ships. Now that's anywhere from 2,500 to 4,000 people on a very small island, and sometimes there are multiple cruise ships a day. So the island gets pretty overwhelmed pretty quickly, particularly at sunset in the town of Io, which is where everyone goes to watch the famous Santorini sunset. I will tell you that I actually got stuck walking back to my hotel in foot traffic. I was literally just standing behind a bunch of people waiting to keep walking. And that is sort of when I lost it. I don't handle crowds well. I don't like crowds, which is kind of amazing considering I used to live in New York City. Santorini is like the Times Square of Greece. So there are a couple of things that you can do to avoid this. Come in the off season, come in May or June, late September, early October. The weather is still fabulous and Santorini will be less crowded. The other idea is that if you want to watch the sunset in Santorini, do it somewhere other than Io, or do it once there and then go watch it somewhere else on the other nights that you are there. But that being said, there are 200 inhabited islands in Greece. You don't need to go to Santorini. There are so many to explore and all of them are different. All of them are beautiful. I actually have a blog post on 5 alternatives to Santorini. I will link down in the description box so you can go and explore some of those other inhabited islands. The other option is to visit the mainland. I had not done a lot of this until last summer, and there are so many beautiful villages and towns to go visit. Some of them are still on the sea, so you're still gonna have the opportunity to go swimming in the Aegean. It's a fabulous experience. Even if you're going swimming in the Ionian, it's a fabulous experience. The other thing is there's some amazing cities and towns in the northern part of the mainland of Greece. One is Meteora. They have beautiful monasteries on the tops of these rocky cliffs that you can actually go up and visit. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is Greece expensive to go on vacation? Yes, if you're going to Santorini and Mykonos is my answer, because they know that people want to go there. So they know that people are going to pay a premium to visit. So the prices have gone up. Santorini is expensive in terms of hotels, food. Depending on where you go, can be expensive. It can be managed. Santorini is definitely more doable on a budget than Mykonos. Mykonos has just totally taken advantage of this demand, and Mykonos is a very different experience. I haven't been, but it's very much a party place. It's very much to be seen kind of place. So the prices, even for just eating out, have become astronomical. A couple of years ago, I was looking at going while I was living in Naxos to just go and see what it was like. I thought, well, okay, I'll stay in this hostel because that's all I could really afford. And it was 50 euros a night. I decided that I wasn't gonna pay 50 euros a night for a hostel room it was one of those hostels where there were like 100 beds in each room as well. So if it had been a 4-bed hostel room, I would have said, sure, I'll go for it. But you can get a hotel room on many islands for, 50 euros or less a night, depending on how like basic you want to be. So just keep that in mind when it comes to the cost. The other thing you should be aware of about Greece is that there's still a culture of smoking here. It's gotten better in the last couple of years. People don't really smoke inside anymore. It's not allowed. Now on some of these smaller islands, there isn't enough, police to go around and stop people, or restaurants that care. But more and more restaurants are realizing that people don't like it, so they don't allow it either. So if the restaurant doesn't allow it, it's pretty easy to handle. One of the ways you can tell is whether or not there is an ashtray on the table. That's still really common here to see an ashtray on the table. It is still allowed outside at restaurants, so it's just something to be aware of, that if you have problems with smoking, you know, breathing, or if it really bothers you, you just need to be paying attention to who you're sitting next to, and if it becomes a problem, see if you can move, or just try to finish your meal quickly and leave, because there probably isn't a whole lot you can do. But so it's just something you want to be aware of if smoking bothers you. So back to the positive. One of the best things I can recommend if you're coming on a trip to Greece and you're not really sure where you want to go on a sailing trip. It's a great way to see a lot of Greece in a short period of time. As I mentioned before, the first time I came here in 2016 was on a 2-week sailing trip around the islands. We started in Athens and we ended in Athens, and I believe I saw 12 islands. I have since gone sailing again, and that's how I saw a lot of the mainland last summer. I highly recommend it. It's a good way to see a lot of the Greece in that short period of time, and there are all different options. You can go on a 7-day, a 10-night, a 14-night. If you're not sure if you have sea legs or not, you can go on a day sail on one of the islands. In Santorini, a great way to see the sunset is to go on a sunset sail. The other common question I get asked about coming to Greece is when to visit. Now, if you're like me and you'd like to avoid the crowds, come in either May and June or September and October. They are less crowded, and most of the Europeans have gone home for the summer by the time September comes around, because most Europeans take their vacation in August. And most people who are in school or have kids are in school are gone as well. The only thing about coming in May and June is the water is not quite as warm yet, because it hasn't had all summer to warm up. And depending on the kind of winter we have, the water can be quite chilly still in May and June. If you're coming in the summer, in July and August, it's going to be hot and it's going to be crowded. So the other thing about coming, no matter what time of the year it is that in some islands and on some beaches, you're going to see some nudity. The first time I saw it, I was kind of surprised, because I don't know, I just wasn't expecting it in Greece, because I think of Greece as being a little bit more conservative in that manner compared to the rest of Europe. So it's not super common. There usually aren't entirely nude beaches that I've seen. If it's a concern because maybe you have young kids or you just don't want to see it, ask your hotel, and they should be able to tell you where those beaches are. And in some places it's just in a section of the beach, so you'll quickly figure out where that is. One of the other things that you should be prepared for is that cash is still king here in Greece, meaning that places are a lot happier if you use cash. Particularly at restaurants, they may ask you to pay cash. Legally, they're supposed to have a credit card machine, so you can push your luck and ask them. However, they may claim that it doesn't work, so just be prepared that that might be the case. Is that sometimes places will give you a discount if you pay with cash. Particularly in a place where it's expensive. And it's not so much that they won't take your credit card, because obviously if it's a place that things are expensive in, they know that people don't just walk around with wads of money. But then they can avoid the credit card transaction fee. I'm not suggesting that you try this, but some places might actually give you a discount if you pay cash. I think this is becoming less and less common though. So I wouldn't walk in and like immediately offer it. Just kind of use your negotiating skills and see what can happen. This will not work at a restaurant. The other thing is if a place where the prices are like on tags, they're probably not going to offer you a discount. They might though, like when you go to check out, they may say, are you paying with cash or credit card? And if you say cash, they may say, oh, I can give you 10% off. So sometimes it'll just be like a thank you for purchasing from me kind of thing. And the very last thing that I mention, and I've left it to the last because usually when I tell people this, they tend to get a little bit weird. You can't put toilet paper in the toilet here in Greece. People will say that you can in Athens, but unless you're living in a newer apartment building or a really nice hotel, That's probably not going to be the case. It's mainly because the pipes aren't big enough and they've never upgraded. The buildings are really old. That's the case in my apartment. Usually you'll know because there'll be a sign asking you, please don't put the toilet paper in the toilet, in the bathroom. Usually it's above the toilet. Don't freak out. Greeks are very used to this. Like, there's a bin beside the toilet for you to put your toilet paper in, and the cleaning people are totally used to it. So like, don't let that thing freak you out about coming to Greece, and it's part of the reason I've left this to the end. So for those of you who have traveled to Greece, is there anything that I've missed that you think should be included on this list? Or maybe something I haven't experienced before? If so, leave me a comment below. Or if you have questions about any of this, also leave me a comment below. And if you're new here and you like this video, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.